So here we are and the system is broke. American dream has gone up in smoke. So stop sitting there all broken hearted. Let's get this motherfucking party started. Lady Liberty is ringing a bell, and we're driving us straight into hell. But don't worry, we got what you need. Crank up the volume till your eardrums bleed. Gonna make America again.
Welcome, everyone, to the A Better Way to a podcast. We are your hosts, Andrew and Jordan. And today I'm Jordan. He's Andrew. Got to let people know so they know the difference between the two of us.
I know that we sound identical, so it's hard to.
We do sound identical. We look identical if you're on YouTube also. I feel like it's when people are looking at two gentlemen as good looking as ourselves, it's hard to tell the difference.
Correct.
Because we're at such a high caliber that
we become abstract concepts, just the paragon of class.
Exactly. As I was saying, we are here with Brandon from Punk with a Camera. Thanks for coming on, man.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me.
For those who don't know, Brandon is the owner of Punk with a Camera. Well, actually, is that the name of your business? I know it's on the Instagram. Okay,
I think it's also descriptive of his like personal kind of like ethos, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I've been doing this since I was a teenager. First, we were making YouTube videos, and then we started making T-shirts, and now I think we're gonna make videos again. I don't know.
Sick.
Hell yeah, dog.
Yeah, we were talking about that last time you were on. We had an episode with Brandon earlier, but it was a late night recording. He had been unpacking and moving to his new warehouse for like 15 hours that day. And while we were obviously thrilled to have him on and thought he did a great job, I totally get wanting to redo it because you felt spent after such a long day.
Yeah, I feel like I got 4 hours of sleep tonight, so now I'm like
winning.
I'm good.
That's a lot of sleep, man.
Well, it is a lot of sleep when you didn't get any, like the last time we did this. But 4 hours is, I guess that's one of those things where I think that's a great night's sleep because I have horrible sleep discipline. So if I can get 4 hours of solid sleep, that's fantastic. But
yeah,
I also take Adderall in the morning, so I kind of cheat my way through the day if I don't get a good night's sleep. But yeah, no. So you've got Punk with a Camera. We found you on Instagram a while ago. Love the shirts you make. Love the stuff you do because you do more than just make shirts. You're big with Food Not Bombs in Texas, and I think your vibe is impeccable and irrefutably impeccable. And
inevitable.
Yeah, exponential. And please don't keep going. I have no more words left.
No, you're a sweetheart, I swear.
I saw that look of fear in your eyes and I stopped.
Please stop, please. But yeah, no, happy to have you on, man. Can you do a better job than I just did explaining what you do?
I'm a internet goblin that makes silly things and wants to change how people look at stuff, I guess.
You're fighting the propaganda war, man. You're trying to put ideas in people's heads and make them seem cool.
Yeah, like I think one of my favorite like early arguments to what I was doing was like, what did somebody say? It was something along the lines of like, aren't you just like selling concepts or something like that? And I'm like, not really. I'm trying to start conversations with people that otherwise would be uncomfortable having those conversations.
Sure.
So if we can normalize certain topics, then we can actually make progress from people that otherwise would just like, oh, well, it's Tuesday. That's terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like, your shirts definitely start conversations. The most recent.
That's kind of what a graphic tee is supposed to do.
Yeah, for sure. The most recent one you guys came out with was the Elon Musk doing the Hitler salute one, getting his arm blown off.
Yeah.
That's fucking cool. And I think that when people see that kind of stuff, they're like, all right, this is a person with some views. And at least for me personally, knowing my own views, I'd be like, all right, this dude is probably someone I can have a conversation with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't have to be a wizard to cast fireball. It's a Molotov.
That's fucking awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
How to Catch a Predator is one of my favorite ones. The one where what's his name? The dude who
I can never say his last name right because it's like Creole, but it's like Gary Pelushi or something like that.
Yes. But this kind of imagery, and we can put it on the YouTube when we edit this so people can see. This kind of imagery on a t-shirt is not something I think most people are used to, but it's awesome. It's Gary Pelushi or whatever, shooting the dude who molested his son in the head as he walked by the
Pache.
Gary Palooza.
Shooting Gary Palooza.
Shooting the douchebag who molested his son as he walked by the photo booth. And I think something like that resonates with, for sure, all dads, all parents, and also just people in general who hate pedophiles, which is most people who aren't pedophiles. But you've got a ton of stuff like that. You've got that one. You've got the Deny, Defend the Pose tee that came out after Luigi murked that CEO in the middle of New York. Yeah, that one's fucking cool. And Nazi Lives Don't Matter. That's a sick one. Just a bunch of like really rad designs that I think resonate with a ton of people who don't know how to like verbalize that stuff in a way that is going to have conversation with people or like really make an impact. So they wear a shirt or buy a sticker or something like that that has your design on it and makes them feel like they're being able to represent what they believe.
Yeah. No, and that's the goal, because if you get more people talking about important subjects, then you can be closer to change. If everyone was continuing to be uncomfortable to talk about politics, then we would just keep ignoring serious issues constantly.
Yeah.
And to an extent, we clearly still do in America, but I feel like it helps, and that's the goal of it.
Yeah.
And I feel like sometimes people want to go back to like not talking about politics and everybody being uncomfortable, even like bringing it up. But then, and I get that impulse because like sometimes it is better to just like treat people like a neighbor and just not worry about their political leanings. But then also it's like you said, like sometimes some really egregious stuff that only gets talked about behind closed doors is allowed to like fester in that way.
I think there's a middle of the road where,
Sure.
As a result of not talking about politics, we also didn't have this incredibly tribalized political system that feeds off of people's like innermost insecurities. Like the only reason somebody like Trump gets elected is because he panders to people who have these fears and insecurities that are really not represented by people in like the mainstream political system, at least before Trump, because those are the kind of things that, whether it was immigration, whether it was I don't know, man. People had these beliefs, but they weren't turned. The dial wasn't turned up to 10 like they are with somebody like Trump. And I think if you were to ask somebody in the 90s what their view was on certain things, they would be.
You'd hear like a gradient of like say like anti-immigration sentiment. You'd hear like various different kind of positions on that spectrum. You wouldn't be like. You wouldn't hear this like
deport them all, and
I think that's because we're at a point where it's like, okay, now people feel like they have to talk politics, but we're still not comfortable with like disagreeing with people. You know what I mean? And we got to get to a point where people can like have a conversation about this stuff without being like mad at each other about being like almost on in the same spot but not quite, because it just drives people to these extremes.
Yeah, and this is where I think businesses like yours, Brandon, are awesome, because while we try to take the approach of, hey, we need to go talk to your neighbor because you've got more in common with them than you think, there is a benefit and there is a need
for strong messages
and for lack of a better word, screaming at people, because I think that's what your shirts do. And I think there are certain people that you are never going to have conversations with that will amount to anything.
Yeah, exactly.
And they need to know that you're out there and that you think these things,
Exactly. You can reach people and have conversations with people who are in the middle parts of the spectrum, I think, that are just waiting for somebody on who's friendly enough or who is patient enough from the quote unquote opposite side to give them the time of day. But there are people on the fringes on the, in this particular area, like on the right, who you're never going to reach, and you shouldn't waste time trying to reach. So I think having this kind of I don't want to say like in your face type of imagery is for one, it's cathartic to the people wearing it, because I think it makes like I personally like shit like this because
There's an element of like fantasy about it, right? Like cathartic fantasy, you know, like you don't have to be a person who will throw a Molotov cocktail to wear a shirt about throwing Molotov cocktails
Yeah.
to signal that like that's where you're at politically and emotionally. You know, you don't have to, it's not like you're lying by putting on that shirt and starting that conversation.
yeah, no, for sure. And I think that like in my head, the more people wearing Fireball shirts, the better, because it's going to start sending messages that like, hey, this wasn't the way that it used to be back in the day, and people are waking up, people are angry now, and now it's time to change things. And whether or not that actually happens, at least the image that these politicians will have in their head of people wearing these kinds of shirts will make them think like, things are worse than they used to be, and
Yeah.
it's worth paying attention to.
And I think that's what's important, is at the end of the day, like if you have a bunch of people of a similar thought process on, what does change look like, or what do we want to start normalizing? I mean, you look back at our own history, we used to tar and feather the fucking tax man.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And now we don't do shit.
Yeah, there's back in the day 20 years ago, and then there's back in the day 200 years ago, and
Yeah.
yeah, it's a little different.
Yeah, but I think that people are becoming less complacent, and that they are seeing, hopefully in part, certain protests in different countries that go a lot differently. I mean, you can look at the farmer protests in Europe and the firemen who
Yes.
like
Yes.
talk to police officers. Like that's what I fuck with personally. I mean, the firemen who lit themselves on fire and then started
Yes.
fighting police officers got to be the
Yeah.
most badass shit I've seen in my fucking life.
Listen, I know you and I have talked about doing a collab for a while, and I never get off my ass and ask you, but if, as a firefighter, if that's something that you wanted to work on together, I would fucking love that.
You're gonna light yourself on fire?
Yeah, well, no, I'll let myself on fire, take a picture for the gram, but listen, anything for validation. But
Yeah.
no, I like that's an image that I've always loved, and honestly, like bringing it back to work, it's funny because even in a union job, my job is very 50, I would say like 30-70 as far as like left to right, and even farther divided between people who are on the far left and the farther right. I have a few friends of mine who are, I would say, in my camp as far as like politically speaking, where we have conversations similar to what we have on this podcast. And then there are a few people who, know that I own guns, and that's as far as I want to take it with them, because
Yeah.
they're more liberal. Yeah. But that's something I've always loved. I see how Europe does it. I see these farmers taking their tractors and with these 1,500 pounds of cow shit and dumping it on Parliament's front steps, like
spraying it,
yes,
covering it.
yes,
Oh, yeah.
like that's
Yeah.
amazing. Like we would never. And it's funny because I just saw this. Not funny, but after Trump just pulled out of the foreign aid program, and it is actually going to affect U.S. farmers.
The government was buying crops to send to like hunger abatement programs, like anti-starvation initiatives. And now without US aid, nobody's buying all that stuff that they made, and it's ready to go because they killed it overnight. So nobody could prepare. There was no time to like figure out where this stuff is going. So all that food could rot and could be a complete loss for the farmers. And, it's very possible that Trump's administration might just say, no, there's no recourse for that. You shouldn't have made those crops. You shouldn't have put them in storage.
Yeah.
Tough luck.
I don't ever want us to get to a point where we have to do things like that. And I don't want us to get to a point where people are saying, all right, fuck my livelihood because it's not worth anything anymore. I'm going to do these actions, X, Y, and Z, because I have nothing left to lose, but we're quickly heading towards that.
Well, no, that alone could sink a whole bunch of independent farmers. It could completely kill their business. And like, what are they going to do with the rotten food? I say feed it to politicians.
Yeah. Yeah,
Make them
absolutely.
Eat it.
Absolutely. Brandon, do you think that I asked this question the last time we got together, and I know I said that I support you guys and love all the stuff you make, and obviously that's still true, but for the people who maybe disagree with me and think that or disagree with you guys. I mentioned that we are more on the side of trying to progress political discourse and trying to get people to talk to each other with the way that we kind of conduct ourselves and whatnot. Do you think that there are people, do you think there's any merit to people who think that your designs take us a step back when trying to achieve that? Or do you think that maybe the juice is not worth the squeeze, if that makes sense?
I think for the most part that there is never not enough juice to be squeezed from this conversation. I think that it's the same thing like with Malcolm X said about the liberals, you know, like they'll sit there all day long and say that they're for the cause, but they really have the sharpest teeth. I think that community action and doing the dishes will do way more than standing in a line and saying you're upset about something.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. No, I feel that. That's, and I asked that because that's really the only kind of criticisms that I've seen over, like, on your page. And you said before, you don't read the comments and whatnot. And I have certain days where I've got nothing going on. It's very rare, but I'll go and, yeah, I know, nothing going on. I have not prioritized things effectively, so I have downtime.
Yeah.
That's more of what I mean. Is there are things that I should be doing, but I'm not. So I'll sit on the couch and look through Instagram, and occasionally I'll see people say like this doesn't help, or like what, you know what I mean?
Well, they'll say this doesn't help the conversation, but they're not out there feeding homeless people.
Oh, exactly. No.
Yeah, it's the same thing I always say. You can say you want to be a leftist all goddamn day, but until I see you in the fucking place doing the dishes or helping out with the garden, then I don't give a fuck about what you think. I think that your opinion is nigh without action. If you want to sit there and bitch, go ahead and bitch, but I'm not going to listen. You want to sit there and lend a hand, then I will talk to you and I will be there with you and I'm fucking about it. But otherwise, get the fuck out of here if you're not going to do the goddamn dishes.
And I think, that makes total sense to me. And I think it's funny that, I'm not even like necessarily like a far leftist, and that makes like perfect sense to me. And it really surprises me sometimes when people who sell themselves as like real, like hardcore leftists, they don't understand that.
Yeah. I think it comes like you can put your percentage of leftist onto a fucking political spectrum. Just give me the people that have fucking basic human empathy.
Sure. Yeah.
Everything else, throw it the fuck away because I don't care about it.
Yeah. I mean, but that's all like academic stuff, That's not where the rubber meets the road.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that there's definitely like there's room in this like mission or whatever it is for multiple approaches. And I don't think it's fair to be like, like we take one approach and, we want to have like conversations. We want to make people feel comfortable talking to us and to each other. But, it's not enough to be like, that works for us and that's what we do. And so everybody else's approach is wrong and also is not helping.
I think that's a big issue in leftist circles is the divisiveness of like, like who is ultimately right. You'll hear constantly about leftist infighting, and I constantly am very vocal on the fact of like, hey, I don't care where you fucking stand. If you eventually get to the point where you can gain some empathy and you can understand that where you're at was wrong, like you're welcome in my fucking in my crew. People change all the fucking time. We need to get out of this black and white thinking. We need to understand that humans are inherently gray. And if the end goal is progressing the working class to a better level of solidarity, then that's what we should focus on.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've met so many like, extreme leftists where they're like, I'll never talk to a libertarian again. I'm like, why? They're just misguided fucking middle class people or working class people. Just because you don't like somebody, they're never fuck that. People change, people grow. Focus on cultivating the masses through a common fucking end goal, whether that's like, hey, I want to get a bunch of people together to work on mutual aid for homeless people or whatever the fuck it is. It's just sometimes I feel like there's this level of elitism within certain ideologies that just alienate people. And then we sit around and we're like, oh, why is no one joining our cause?
Yeah, right. What happened?
Yeah.
but I'm right. So why aren't they coming to me?
Yeah.
Oh,
They're wrong because they haven't read Marxist theory.
Yeah, they haven't read enough. They haven't read enough theory. I'm sitting over here like I've been working fucking concrete since I'm 15 fucking years old. I've never read Marx in my goddamn life. I've experienced what he's written about in a fucking personal thing. But you're gonna tell me I just haven't read enough?
Yeah.
Swing a fucking sledgehammer.
Yeah.
Take some concrete down.
For real though.
And to quote plenty of people, your hands are soft. Fuck.
Well, this is what so you bring up libertarians, and that's like the world that I'm from. I am so greatly alienated from that like whole social kind of thing now. But you know, one of the things that strikes me about libertarians is that, you know, up until like the Mises Caucus takeover, there was this big tent kind of attitude of like, you know, like, okay, you're an ANCAP. Okay, you're a minarchist. Okay, you know, you're a fucking centrist, just normal capitalist. Like, whatever, dude. You know, it used to be, and it's not this way anymore because everything fell apart. The wheels came off, as you know. But, you know, it used to be that it was like if you had like some basic concept of like, you know, gay people shouldn't be killed and, you know, I don't know, like free market economics is okay, libertarians would like band together over that.
There's that famous shirt that was something along the lines of, I just want to allow gay men to grow weed or something like that.
I want gay married couples to protect their pot farms with legal machine guns or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the thing is that works, you know. I see it so far on the other side of it to where it's like all of these people are different with a common goal. We got to figure that out.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And that's part of why I think that the alt-right and the fascists are so successful is because they'll use anybody. They'll take anybody.
Yeah.
They don't give a shit. They don't give a shit about ideology. So many of them don't believe anything, you know, to begin with. So they're very flexible about who they work with.
Well, the reason neo-Nazi organizations are able to recruit people is because they are accepting of differences. They say, okay, we can work with that.
We'll get you there.
We'll get you from
We'll
A
get
to
you
B
there.
eventually,
Yeah.
as long as you're able to like, well, no, really what it is, and it's the same reason the MAGA movement is so successful is because people crave community and people crave validation for the things that they believe.
Yeah.
And when you are kind of floating, you have these thoughts and these beliefs that aren't really grounded in anything, but you know, you had an experience with an illegal immigrant once that was negative, or you had an experience with somebody, I mean, who wasn't even an illegal immigrant, but was like Mexican or perceived to be Mexican by yourself. And, you know, you don't really have anything to bounce that off of for, you know, as like a sounding board to be able to be told whether or not that was correct or not. You have the same kind of thoughts with trans people. You have the same kind of thoughts with gay people. And it's, you know, hey, I've got this slight suspicion one way or another, and I don't really know how to feel about it. But then you get people on one side who say, no, you're a fucking bigot and a piece of shit and an asshole. A lost cause. And then you get people on the other side saying, no, we agree with you. Come hang out with us. Regardless of how far over to that side that person was originally, they are pushed over that by one, the negativity from one side and the overwhelming positivity, quote unquote, saying we accept you the way you are and we want to encourage this from the other side. Neo-Nazis used to go to like, this is why there's like a mix between like the punk scene and Nazis, unfortunately, is because they would go, you'd have people who didn't really have strong family units at home, who found community in the punk scene, and they were like, hey, let's use that. We will give you that family unity with us. We also hate Jews and black people. And you know, if we can get you there eventually, we will. But that's really it. You know, we were talking about this the last time. The left looks for traitors, the right looks for converts. And that's why these groups are so successful. If we took a page out of their book and we're like, hey, you're not perfect, but we can work with that. We can get you to like see the light, but on our quote unquote side, or like, hey, you're an empathetic person and I can see that you just have had bad experiences with certain people. We can use that shared empathy that we have as humans to then show them like, hey, this is why what happened to you. And it's not necessarily because they're all bad. And it's not because they're all bad, you know, like that's too simple. Like that's not true.
Yeah. No, I think that's the right way to do it. I feel like leftists need their own form of church, not like in a religious way, but in a community driven way. I think it's useful through like community aid and everything else. But the problem with mutual aid, at least in my experiences, there is a focus on non-hierarchical, so much so that it leads to so much fucking burnout from the people that care, and then they become alienated and they just don't want to do it anymore. I've seen it countless times, and I could only wish that at some point, we could create a church-like setting of community for doing good in the community. I don't know what
Yeah.
it'll look like, but I hope it happens one day. I hope to be a part of it. Because again, the person at church running a book club is going to do more revolutionary action as far as developing community bonds than you will ever do on your online forum.
I'm reminded of
Yeah.
I think this happened in our removed episode or one of our deleted episodes, but we had a guest on that was like musing about no, this was Yellow Peril, never mind. We had a guest on that was they were talking about some like right-wing gun dude on Reddit was posting about how like he tried to like get some right-wing dudes, some conservative dudes together to like feed homeless people, and he's like, nobody wants to do it. What's wrong with you guys? It's all a bunch of fucking leftists. Why don't any of you guys want to show up? And I just think that's so funny because yeah, if you're like living those values, like you're going to be exposing people that you never like expected to the truth of this situation, of this like political social situation.
What's wild is that, Andrew, you know this. Whenever you see, this is the reason I don't disparage religion anymore. I used to
Yeah.
be an anti-theist, like, because I thought everything that came from
Yeah.
religion was bad.
Which I get. I understand that. It's one of the reasons I don't talk about being religious ever, because it comes with so much fucking baggage.
Exactly. But there's a reason why I stopped doing it. It was because I started seeing these religious-based organizations that were actually doing good on a smaller level. I'm not talking about the Catholic Church. I'm talking
Yeah.
about like these mutual aid groups that were based out of their churches and that were like religion focused, that were doing very good. And what I found was that when you followed these people back to why they were doing it and what motivated them to do the good, um, you saw this, like, I saw this stark contrast between what they believed and what people said those organizations were supposed to believe. People believe that these religious organizations are all conservative.
Which like some of them are,
Of
you
course,
know.
but you had these groups that were doing mutual aid, that were doing food pantries, that were doing, like, especially after the storm in North Carolina that like wiped out thousands of homes and killed people. You had some of these mutual aid groups that were church based that were going and rebuilding roads and going and bringing supplies to people, and they had that shared human empathy that you find that is like so common in leftist circles. And I found myself saying like, all right, well, clearly they're not all bad. And ironically, I think they would not mesh well with their conservative counterparts. Like we've talked about this before, where when somebody says, you're anti-God or you're anti, they use scripture, Andrew, to discredit what someone is doing, especially when they're gay or
Yeah.
they're trans, and you come back and say, well, that's actually not what it says at all. That's not what Jesus said. That's not what was preached. And I forget where I was going with this, but I think that, if we could use empathy as the baseline and not be so focused on the politics of it all, we would be able to make so much more progress for the working class and for the country in general.
Yeah, I mean, like I live in the Bible Belt down in Texas, and I think there's a difference between a Christian and an evangelical. You've got
Yeah,
people
for
like
sure.
Joe Osteen that is just that's there for the money. That dude drives up every Sunday in a Lamborghini Hurricane, and then you'll have like there's like 17 different flavors of Christianity down here, but for the most part, their focus is on like, hey, love thy neighbor, and the actual like good preachings of the book. And you're like, okay, well, like fundamentally as a kid, like I always thought that I was just gonna be like atheist or whatever. And I got exposed to like the Joel Osteen side, and then I got exposed to like the Southern like Christian side. And I'm still non-religious, but like I could see a clear parallel between like, okay, well, this person clearly is their faith is based in morals, and this person's based his faith in profit. And it's disgusting to see the difference between a church that has literal fireworks every single day and one that's just like, hey, if you got a little bit of money, we're gonna go give it to Jimmy's uncle down there to help fight his cancer.
Yeah. There's a big difference. And of course, there's like, you know, gradients in between. You know, some churches try to kind of like walk the line, you know, and obviously like depending on how they're staffed and how big they are. And that's one of the reasons I don't go to church anymore.
Yeah, but I think the baseline being that a lot of these places feel like there's just a big difference between a Christian and an evangelical, because a Christian will still
Yeah.
show up and bring food to the homeless. Like the amount of donations that we get at Food Not Bombs, a good like third of them are a Muslim group and a Christian group that just show up with peanut butter sandwiches like fucking clockwork.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's all we fucking got. And I don't think we'd be as successful as we would without these religious organizations that are sticking with their empathetic roots of, you know, helping their neighbor and doing what they can for their community. And I think that's beautiful to see personally. I can only hope that more people can create situations like it outside of a religious organization and mutual aid and go from there, because there's good roots there, you know.
Yeah.
I'm gonna beat it around the bush on that.
Yeah, man, I didn't know, I didn't realize that you did this, but I just noticed on your website that you have a whole mutual aid area where people can straight up just buy stuff for people, like buy food containers for people, or like meals for people, beanies, blankets, hand warmers, gloves, backpacks. Like, that's phenomenal, man. That is so fucking cool of you.
Yeah, that's sick, dude.
We've been doing it for about a year, and I'm going to be able to focus on it more when I can let go of, you know, the shirt side of things, because the two things I want to focus my life on is mutual aid impact and filmmaking. And essentially how it works is not every single time that somebody goes and buys a sweater am I going to like go up to a random person, find their size and buy them a sweater. Most of the times it goes into a pool, and we might have, you know, $4,000, $5,000, $6,000, and I'll get with a mutual aid group like the feminist work group, and I'll be like, hey man, this is our budget, what good can we do with it? And then we'll get a spec price sheet out, and we'll go out and get a backpack as a base, and then put in like lotions and everything else. I remember one time with Food Not Bombs, I was unloading water into our storage unit, and this one you know, homeless dude with like a broken arm or something tried helping us. I was like, man, I don't have any money on me, but I can buy you food later if you're down. And I sat down with him, and we had barbecue at Papa's about a block away, and he was just telling me about stuff like, man, I'm grateful that you come out and do stuff like this, but please don't buy me another fucking toothbrush. I got like 26 of them bitches.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, well, let's go on the ground and let's talk to people about like, what is the real shit that you need right now? Because there is no upward mobility. So all we can really do is try our best to keep as comfortable as possible. And I mean, that's the kind of focus that I want to do in the future, is like, okay, well, I can't end homelessness, but I can at least try to make the people within my own community a lot more happier.
Yeah.
And that's the goal.
Yeah, for sure, man. Another thing that you mentioned is your work with Food Not Bombs. You mentioned that tomorrow you're getting deposed for that.
Yes, I am.
What's going on with that?
So about a year ago, we got an injunction to stop the food sharing ordinance that allowed almost 100 tickets, which was funny because up until the injunction, we were on the government website with permission against, like, to be outside the realm of usefulness from Maronese Parker. And it wasn't until I think actually it was me or somebody else who was just like, dude, we're on the fucking website. We have permission. I don't give a shit about what your sign says. This is the legal fucking document which led to the fucking creation of your special task force. So figure that the fuck out. But anyways, I get to go and answer a bunch of questions tomorrow about why I do what I do. And I've been getting prepped with the lawyers, and I seem to have a tendency to over-explain. So I've learned that I have to keep it short and narrow to the point. So much so that some of the lawyers are like, okay, I think you're ready, like some type of montage, because we did a couple of sessions. But essentially, it's going to be like, you know, why do you feel that the food at 61 Reisner Street you couldn't serve over there? And I'm simply just going to be like, well, you know, like there's no handicap accessibility. We help out a bunch of people with disabilities first. They skip the line. The library is essential. We think it's important that we are publicly seen as we continue to protest a ordinance that is designed to prevent people from giving homeless folks food because they already don't have any resources, you know. And I think that's the sad part of it. I'm hoping that it goes well, because if we win this court case, it'll be legislation that can then be used for the rest of the district that we're in, which includes a couple states, because the only wins so far have been in California and Florida. So if another state wins in another district, you have legal representation to continue the good fight. And that's my hope is, you know, we had an extremely conservative judge who was quite baffled and sided with us for the injunction. So I think overall we have a pretty good case for what we want to do. And I can only hope that it works out.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, for those who don't know, these folks show up, hand out food to houseless people. They get a ticket tell me if I'm explaining this wrong. You guys get a ticket from the police telling you to stop, and you keep doing it every on the schedule that you guys set, and they keep ticketing you. Now you're at the point where you're at, and hopefully there's something comes of this where you're able to continue.
Yeah. And we do continue without getting tickets as long as we have the injunction. But essentially, the law states, without written permission, which we had, by the way, of the public, you know, whatever. So we serve on the sidewalk of the public library. Without their permission, if I were to bring a Little Caesars pizza, for example, go to a park, and I brought you, me, and 3 other people, and we all shared that pizza, we would be committing a crime.
That's wild.
Yep.
Because you're not allowed to serve food?
More than 5 people.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so like without a license or something like that, as like a restaurant or whatever?
We don't have a profit incentive. There's no need for licensing.
Yeah, okay, so that's all right.
They're like, then some of the other questions might be along the lines of like, oh, do you guys require, you know, a food handler's license? To which I would simply state, you know, I can't speak on behalf of Food Not Bombs as a group. I personally have had food servicing handling license, and for the most part, the people that cook our food work in the industry of restaurants, so they likely have it. But there is no like, you must have this.
Yeah.
To do this.
Do you so who do you guys work with to get these meals prepared for people?
Volunteers.
Really?
It's all Grassworks. I mean, I used to do like twice a week cooking in my house, and I think I'm going to start picking that up now that my space is available again. But it's all Grassroots. I mean, we get some grocery donations, but like when I go out and I make a dish, like I pay for it. I can make a dish of banana pudding that feeds 200 people for like $28.
Wow.
Yep.
That's awesome.
It's like 6 bunches of bananas. It's like 15 boxes of graham crackers and like 4 gallons of milk, and then the little packets.
That's a light breakfast.
Yeah, but I can do them in batches. I got one of those stand mixers. I bought it off some lady for $100, and I can do them in batches, and they'll be able to go out, and I can make a full size little restaurant trays, and that feeds 200 people for $38. And in fact, I think one of the things that I really want to do is start working on a zine that would show low cost, high yield food options, so that way more people can create more mutual aid items in the future.
That would be awesome, man. Because that was like, you gave me the number for that, and like we cook food at the firehouse, and it is rarely less than $10 a person with the meals that we cook for people. But like, to be fair, these are, you know, we're doing steak and veggies and a carb usually, but you're looking to feed the majority, like the most amount of people for the least amount of money, while also giving them nutritional value.
Exactly.
That to me is like, to be able to feed that many people for that cheap is incredible, because it really shows you have the know-how to utilize your resources to their like maximum capability. You're using everything, and you're doing the best with as little as possible.
Yeah. No, and that's the goal. I mean, we're not going to end homelessness so as long as we're under the system of capitalism. So let's keep doing what we can to make it a little bit more comfortable, as we all have to suffer. It's just how it is.
that's one of those things that, like we've talked about with Andrew before with libertarianism. I used to be a libertarian and now I just don't know what I am, but I used to be a libertarian and loved the idea of voluntarism. But you don't, it'd be one thing if every libertarian who believed that was out volunteering their time and money.
Yeah, right.
And they're not. Like, if that was the case, if I truly believed, like, if before the Mises Caucus, before, they purged the real libertarians, I think if every libertarian were like, okay, I believe in this, I'm going to go do it, did it, that could make a marketable difference. I mean, if you had hundreds of thousands of people that
there have been some of us out there,
yeah,
doing things, or at the very minimum, like contributing money to
you do,
people who aren't.
and no, absolutely, and like Andrew puts his money where his mouth is, quite literally. I watch him eat money on camera, but no, like he's
McDuckett,
It's an interesting mukbang.
Yeah, I know. No, like I know we joke about Andrew, like in our group chat. Andrew's not rich, but we make fun of him because he's got a trust fund. But it's a modest one. You're able to do stuff.
I would say I'm rich. I would say I'm rich.
Okay, well, I don't know what it is.
I don't struggle. I have enough that for me and my family, and then I give money to other people.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. So Andrew has never been frugal in any sense of the word. Like,
I'm not a penny pincher. I'll say that.
No, and look, you don't have to say it. I'll say it for you. It's like whenever we've had a cause that we've been trying to raise money for somebody. When our friend Eddie was trying to raise money for his truck, his medic vehicle in Ukraine, like Andrew was putting forth like large sums of money to help with this kind of stuff, and I feel like if everyone who believed that that was the way to do things did that to the best of their ability. I'm not saying everybody has to throw like $1,000 at a GoFundMe every time one comes up, but like if everybody were to do that, then voluntarism would actually be something that could work. But the fact is that
there's just not enough people willing to do that, I think.
No.
And so, some of that I think is because of how society is structured. I think the incentives are against and I feel that as somebody who likes to give people money for things. The incentives are stacked against me. It's really not in my best interest to do that in the long run. But to do that, you have to not only think about your own best interest.
Yeah.
But you're not conditioned in this society. You're not conditioned to think that way, which is frustrating. And so you try to do things the morally right way, and you end up in trouble with the police. Or you end up with tax penalties, or and it's just like, it's almost like they thought about it and they built a society to make you selfish and to make you not think about helping people.
Yeah.
Weird.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just think it's sick that I wish you guys the best of luck with the injunction tomorrow. I feel like if the judge was in your favor early on, I think it's going to be a good day. But I would love a zine like that shows people how to make meals for not a ton of money, because I think things like that, I think people are intimidated to get started with something like that because they don't know how to organize. They don't know what the funding would look like, how to, find the resources in order
how to navigate it legally too,
that's a huge thing.
Like you could know exactly how to organize this kind of distribution, but you could run afoul of some local fucking gung-ho cops that just don't want to see you feeding homeless people.
Yeah.
Joan Cheever here in San Antonio ran into that. She is she's part of some like wealthy family, so she's not like some, she didn't come from like nothing. She, she put her own resources into her food truck. I can't remember what she called her operation, but she kept getting in trouble. And she would get a ticket and she'd be like, I don't give a shit. I'm not paying it. I'm going to come, or I think she would pay it, but she's like, I'm going to pay every ticket that you give me and I'm going to come out here and keep feeding people.
What do you guys think the future holds for Food Not Bombs Texas? And if this goes well, how would you like, if at all, like, how would you like to expand something like that?
I mean, me personally, with Punk with a Camera, I want to create my own branch of mutual aid stuff, mainly just because I feel like there is A disconnect on goals, at least the Houston chapter of Food Not Bombs. I think that overall the consistency is the best part about their group, but I feel like sometimes we get kind of caught up on like, okay, well, we can do a constant serving pretty well. That's pretty good, but also like all of our members are being burnt out, and
Yeah.
a lot, like it's hard to keep this consistent to where like I think that I would want to start personally doing like our own mutual aid. Like we've got land over here that we could cultivate for growing crops, or we could start doing stop the bleeds or Narcan trainings and stuff like that. As far as Food Not Bomb goes, all as I can hope is that they keep being with the privilege of being able to do this without legal repercussion, can stay consistent. And I would love for the city to one day recognize that there is a need for a goddamn soup kitchen in the downtown area.
Yeah.
And that they would come to people like Food Not Bombs with the experience that would allow for us to transition into a more realistic, permanent place to make social good happen. But I don't know if that will happen under this administration. I doubt it would happen under a Trump presidency. All I can do is continue to have resistance and fight for what's right.
Yeah.
So if this works out and you're able to, when you have more time to distance yourself from the actual t-shirts from Punk with a Camera, besides making food or growing food, would you want your own mutual aid group to be doing things like similar to handing out meals to people? And
absolutely. Yeah, I would love to get like a team of 10 to 20 people that could just drive around to the various homeless encampments and make sure that everyone has a damn good meal and everything else. Like there's people I've seen where they build like tiny homes on trailers that can be like walked with a bicycle and shit. I think that's pretty dope. It doesn't really solve the problem, but it's elevating the comfort of somebody who's suffering, and I think that's what's most important. I don't give a fuck about money. I know how to make it. I know how to like raise funds for things, and I know that money is always just a roadblock to everything in life. I hope that we can be successful enough that we can do shit like that, like go out and like, hey, like these people need meals, or they need like attention, or like that person's, I don't know. I just hope that we can make change. I hope that we can work every single day towards the goals that we want to reach, and that they're feasible and obtainable. And I don't know, like during the freeze, I drove around with my buddy Kyle. We went to like 3 or 4 different fucking warming centers. None of them wanted our blankets, and we handed more blankets out at the fucking red lights, being like, "Hey, are you cold?
Yeah.
Here you go."
Yeah. Hell yeah, dude.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not trying to be Santa Claus, but if that's the best way to help people, because every other avenue that I've tried, it just feels like it's not as effective or efficient, then that's what we'll do. And that's what I'll aim towards.
Just like literally finding people that need a thing and giving them the thing. Like, it doesn't get more direct than that.
I would love to have like little mobile response teams that essentially like can just go to places where people need it, and whether it's just giving out clothes or just giving out a meal, or maybe we can get like a doctor or something like that would donate his time once a week and do basic fucking check, like just I don't know. I think that would be revolutionary.
I get so fucking frustrated with these like, establishment, more like authoritarian people that mean well. They want to help homeless people, but they're like, you have to work within the system. You can't give them food. You need to send them to the homeless shelter. And I'm like, the shelter that ran out of food? The shelter with no rooms? And they're like, if you feed them here, they're gonna come back here for food. And I'm like, yeah. If I see them and I have food, I'll give them food again.
It'll be something along the lines of like, oh, if you give them money, they're gonna spend it on drugs. I'm like, their life fucking sucks. I don't give a fuck if they spend it on drugs.
Yeah, so am I.
No, my dad is like he's like a Republican. He's like a mainstream Republican. He gave this homeless chick. We were on a family trip in like Tennessee, and he gave this homeless chick $20. And somebody, I don't remember who, was like, she might go buy drugs with it. And my dad was like, that's her business. Like she wants to get comfortable. If she buys food or she buys booze, like whatever.
Like, I'm so sorry that you don't understand just how bad like the suffering is, that you can't comprehend the concept of comfort within that suffering. That might just be drug use.
Yeah,
that's privilege that a lot of people don't recognize. Is like you don't know what somebody needs or wants, and what that thing that they get how that is going to help them reach their next step, if it's even possible for them to do so. Like it is such a level of elitism to be like I'm not going to give this person a thing because then they won't learn their lesson. Are you that person to teach them that lesson?
Yeah, right.
Are you the one in your list of things that you've never done wrong?
And that's like a conservative kind of perspective, but from like a progressive perspective, I feel like they treat them like wildlife sometimes. You know, like you say, like,
Yeah.
don't feed the bears, don't feed the birds. They're like, don't feed the
Yeah.
homeless people. And it's like they want them to be okay. They just don't want to do it. And they don't want it in their neighborhood, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's kind of like if there's a spider in the house, are you the person to kill the spider or will you capture and release it? And man, I forgot where I was going with this.
Or are you the kind of person that lets the spider hang out and
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like which person are you in that regard? Because in my mind, like, well, if we're not going to solve any level of upward mobility, whether it's middle class, lower class, or if you're homeless, then I mean, hang out together. We're all in the same fucking group. We're fucking poor, they're fucking rich. And the only difference between those people is the level of comfort in which they have the privilege of having. But it's still, that's it. That's the only comfort. That's it. Like we could unify and make change if we all understood that comfort was not enough and we should demand more. We should demand the bare basics for everyone that's fucking available. I mean, but a lot of people are so lost in their own comfort that they could never fathom the idea that somebody who hasn't, quote unquote, worked for what they have, deserving what they feel that their fruits are worth, which, that's a personal issue, but it's also what holds us back.
I don't really believe in like deserving things.
Yeah.
I don't believe in I talk about like karma and the universe and whatever, but at the end of the day, like I don't think anybody like deserves anything good or bad. I think you get what you get and you give people whatever you can, and it doesn't have to be more complicated than that.
Yeah. No, and that's the goal. Like I don't know where we're gonna go with like the next step of how we want to address mutual aid. I've got concepts and I hope they work out, but I just want to see if we can't influence more people to want to see that change. And I think through that we will see it.
Just be more empathetic, just like
Yeah.
see someone feeding a homeless person and be like, fuck yeah. And not like, grossed out.
The way you are.
Yeah, the fucking way that you are. Yeah. Yeah. Whatever bullshit it is that you think in your secret heart of hearts, please change it.
Yeah, it's weird, man. I just, there's ways that I think people want to help, but feel like I think the big thing is that people want to help, but they feel like the help that they have to offer would be wasted. And by wasted, I mean when they give people money, it's like, oh, well, they're going to waste this on drugs. They're going to waste this on that.
Yeah, because it's not what they would do.
Yeah, exactly. But what were you going to say?
I was going to say, like, when we do Food Not Bombs and we have enough volunteers for what we need, I remind every fucking volunteer that's there that just their physical presence there does more than they could imagine. Just because they're not currently in that fucking line serving people does not mean that them being there isn't useless. If we could normalize more people who want to make change in those people's lives, then we would have the strength to do so. And I think that's part of the disconnect is some people think that if they can't physically see the action or the change that they want to be a part of, then it's nigh and they won't try it. But I'm very serious on just your presence here makes a huge difference. It creates a comfort that more people can step up to this and say, hey, this is wrong and I'm here to stand against it,
Yeah.
What's that proverb about plant seeds knowing that you'll never see the trees, the flowers bloom on the trees or something like that?
Plant a tree whose shade you'll never know or something.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's one of those things. It's like, yeah, you showing up to be part of something, you might not know what that's going to do. You might not physically be able to see the impact of that, but you affecting the people around you and normalizing you showing up and normalizing mutual aid is huge because that's going to influence somebody else to do that down the road.
And that's the goal is, you've got so many people that look at homeless people as lesser than people. And if we can challenge the stigma of homelessness, of drug use, of everything else, and we can normalize that we're all just fucking human beings going through our own stuff and certain people need more help than others and they deserve that help. They're not undeserving of it. Then I feel like we can normalize a better future for everyone.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%, man. Yeah, it's a wild time we live in now where like we're arguing with people about who to feel empathetic for and who's deserving of empathy. Like these nobody likes a rat designs, the shirts and hoodies and stuff that we're selling right now. It's funny, I can't advertise them on the main A Better Way 2A page, but I have a second A Better Way 2A page that wasn't nuked, and I've just been like putting some money into seeing like what advertising will do. And it's funny because the way Instagram works is you advertise, you can choose to advertise to people similar to the followers you have. And I figured that was a safe bet because the people who follow A Better Way 2A are sympathetic to a cause like that. Man, the comments on that post that has the advertisement attached to it, all Trump people, all conservative like Trump people, and they're like ice baby, you know, deport them all. And I'm like, man, I don't have the energy to engage with everybody. But to be fair, I've gotten a bunch of people who have said like, hey, I saw your ad, and that's how I learned about you guys also, who are good people and willing to go with it. But it's just nuts that like, you know, people are like, oh, we can't have unfettered access to our border. I'm like, homie, this is getting donated to a legal fund that helps people who are trying to navigate the insanely complex process of becoming citizens and coming to this country. Like, it's not, we're not investing in a wrecking ball to tear down the wall that Daddy Trump built for you.
Of course, you know, if they're asking me, then, you know, open borders now, but whatever, you know, I'm not, that's why I don't run the DMs.
No, but like we're like, this is going to a legal fund for people who, and regardless of how much money it is, I think they said like $30 allows people to call home to their family for X amount of people. $5,000 allows a lawyer to represent somebody, and like there's a spectrum of levels of support that their money goes to, and it's like, dude, regardless of whether or not you believe that we should have open borders or not, if somebody's able to access funds to use a lawyer or legal services or to communicate with their family members back home, that's somebody who's clearly trying to do the right thing, and you should be willing and excited to help somebody like that out. But so much of this just comes back to racists not wanting brown people into the country, and it has significantly less to do with whether or not they're actually here legally.
Yeah, because a lot of people that are being targeted are fucking resident aliens, and I'm like,
Yes.
at that point, they're 9 steps out of the fucking 10. Like, what's your issue?
Yeah. I know, it's crazy. My favorite thing that I've seen is you've got people like on reservations teaching Central Americans how to speak Navajo.
Yeah.
So that if they get detained, they can speak Navajo, and people will like,
I fucking
think
love
that
that,
they're not immigrants, that they've lived here.
That's so sick.
Yeah, I'm supposed to be doing bunny training soon.
What's that?
From my understanding, it's the white guy that talks to the cops during the ICE things.
Oh,
yeah.
Bunny? They're calling bunnies?
Yeah, I think they're calling them bunnies. I'm supposed to go and do one of that soon, but essentially it's like what to do in the situation where like you are clearly of privilege and you can, you know, de-escalate or help people out that otherwise are being targeted because of the color of their skin or the way that they speak, etc.
Yeah.
And I'm excited for that because that sounds fun to me, you know, like
oh yeah.
Like I was sharing them memes with like, I'm gonna start running whenever they
just to waste their time. Hell
waste
yeah.
their time.
Yeah, me, a completely legal citizen who was born here and lived here. I'm when I see ICE roll into the neighborhood.
Yeah, but that's something that I'm pretty excited to start doing. I actually got to go talk with the folks running it so I can figure out when we're supposed to do it. We had to reschedule recently, but basically, like, there's a lot that you can do in the day to day as you know we continue to descend further into fascism. And one of those is if you're a white, able-bodied, especially man, and you have that privilege, use it for the power of good, because it's gonna keep happening. I ain't gonna beat around the bush. I wish people would stop acting like we're not a fascist country, like we don't have these things. There's children in migrant holding facilities right now, and there's 30,000 people who are going to go to Guantanamo Bay, apparently. I don't know what level of this is all factual. I'll be honest. Like I'm reading it and I'm like, okay, how much of it can I decipher? You know, there's 800 people that are supposed to be max for Guantanamo, but it's a situation where like you see the pegs in fucking order.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, oh,
Like,
it's getting
it's
bad.
really happening. It's getting bad.
It's
People are like,
fuck.
we still have free speech, and I'm like, okay, but for like how long? Like, you can still say what you want now, but once they've used these mechanisms to oppress these people, like, who's gonna be left to help you out? You know,
Yeah.
when it is time to ban free speech.
Yeah. I saw this meme that was like, when you're an autist for a propensity for pattern recognition and historical events are your special interest.
Yeah.
And it was just them going,
Yeah.
because like, dude, 1939 Germany wasn't it wasn't what people think of when they think of Hitler's Germany yet, but it was very similar to where we are
Yeah.
now.
Oh yeah.
People developing this overtly nationalistic, especially from like an ethnic origin mentality, starting to other certain groups of people to the point where people are comfortable dehumanizing them. Like these
Yeah.
things have happened before in history, and nobody is saying we are in 1942 Germany with concentration camps and ethnic cleansing, but we are in these steps that have happened
Yeah.
before and show historical precedent that is a direction in which this can go if left unchecked. And people are surprisingly like okay with this.
Yeah.
I mean, not that everyone is okay with this, but the people in power and the people, en masse are okay with this and making excuses for it, which is just wild to me. But
Yeah.
I don't know, man. You doing your part and pushing back against it really means a lot. And I think that you using punk with a camera as a cause for good, and to at least show people that there are ways you can show that you're against this in a passive way, because I think like picking out a shirt in the morning is easy, and you picking out a shirt instead of choosing to wear a plain black tee, but wearing a shirt that has a message on it that shows like a message of resistance is super important, because that's something like you can literally do everything. Listen, at the lowest form of protest, you can do everything you plan to do today, but you choosing to wear a shirt that says like, fuck you, I'm not going to deal with this. I'm not okay with this is huge. It's like, I don't know, walk around with a billboard on or a hat that says it's the exact opposite, but the same as these ass hats wearing MAGA hats, because for them, that is their form of protest. So having a form of protest that is the antithesis of that is fucking awesome. And that's why I think you're so successful with this, because it really resonates with people. And I'm glad somebody like you is doing that. I'm glad groups like yours are around doing that.
And that's the hope is it'll continue to get normalized, it'll continue to get bigger, and we'll continue to have a stronger fight against fascism. I mean, that's the end goal,
Yeah.
I think one of the questions for the deposition that the lawyers came up with is like, you have this shirt that says Nazi lives don't matter. What does that mean? I'm like, well, I'm an American.
What do you fucking think?
Yes.
They're like, I'm sorry. I'm like, I'm an American. Nazi lives don't matter. Like in the 40s, we killed Nazis and eradicated them because of the atrocities in which that they created onto the regular people of Europe. I'm an American. I don't think Nazis should exist.
That's very simple.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's really not an argument against that. There shouldn't be an argument against that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The problem, you know what it is? Like I saw this when I posted the video of how did it start? We made a video that said essentially bigots, racist, sexist, transphobes, homophobes not welcome, Nazis not welcome. And I had a couple people saying that. Let me see if I can pull it up actually, because some of the
had a lot of positive comments,
but yeah, 99% positive. And then a couple people saying that some people conflate the word Nazi with conservative.
Yeah. People are like, you can't say that about Nazis because some people say that I'm a Nazi and I'm not a Nazi. And I'm like, okay, well, if you know you're not a Nazi, then just shut the fuck up about it. Like if somebody calls you a Nazi and you know you're not a Nazi, then you're like, oh well, you know, that guy is wrong. Yeah.
It's like when people call me a capitalist, like I can sit back and be like, I'm not a capitalist, or I can sit there who knows me who knows me and go, I think it's really sad that you feel that way.
Yeah.
And then never talk about it. Just move on.
Yeah. No, there's some validity to like the people who are not Nazis saying, I don't want to be labeled a Nazi, because there are certain people on the left who overuse the term for people that they just disagree with.
But then don't come to me. Don't come to me when I'm talking about real Nazis and be like, don't say that about me.
Yes, well, that's the thing. It all comes down to is if you're not a Nazi, you should not be offended by this. And if you feel a twinge of resentment for people saying this, you should ask yourself why.
Yeah.
Why? What are the beliefs that you hold
Yeah.
that people are comfortable using to call you a Nazi? And
Mhm.
if you're not a Nazi, it's time to figure out why that is.
Yeah.
If you are a Nazi, I don't give a shit. You can feel resentment.
Yeah. The other fun comments we got on that post were like people would be like, would you say the same thing about communists? And it's like me over here, like still mostly libertarian. It's like, no, honestly, no, I wouldn't say that about communists. I'll say like anecdotally, like every communist I've ever met is like deeply caring about like social issues, unless they're like lost in the authoritarian sauce, you know?
The way that I say it that usually shuts people up is I will say that about every authoritarian who wants to
Sure, yeah.
rule over certain classes of people.
I don't want to play this game with people. These like
I
fucking,
know.
like word games, where it's because they're asking this question, but it's not a genuine question. They feel like they're being targeted as a conservative, and they want me to denounce like leftists too, but I'm not going to do it because.
But I don't care. I don't care if how
Yeah.
they feel it. My answer is for other people. That's
Yeah.
the thing. My answer is not for
Yeah,
them. My
sure.
answer is for
Yeah,
if you
that's
think
true.
that if you're going to other a certain group of people and say that they don't have the same rights that you do, then yes, this video is for you, regardless of your political ideology. But yes, anecdotally, all of the communists that I've met aren't like that.
Yeah.
So like
they're like, in Stalin's Russia, they rounded up gay people. I'm like, okay, well, how many Stalinists have you met? How many, how many?
If you find me a communist who believes that, who thinks that we should be doing that, then yes, the video's for them too, because that's included in the groups of people
and like
here.
the bigots and like
bigots and homophobes and transphobes. Like,
but it's like, no, I'm not gonna make you feel better as a deeply conservative person by denouncing leftists, because I just don't feel that way about leftists. But like, they're not the same.
I don't see communists calling for the deportation and the throwing in camps of thousands of people across the country. I do see Nazis doing that.
Whatever, dude.
Get fucked.
Yeah, just fucking start a shotgun. I don't know. What do you want? Like,
figure it out, bud. I don't know, but yeah, Brandon, I appreciate you coming on, man. This I would say that this was more energetic than the last episode that we did.
Not asleep.
No. I mean, it was. Listen, I like the last one, and I'll listen to that when I have trouble sleeping and want to listen to this your soothing voice talk. It was
just his soothing, just
your soothing voice, just solo track. None of my voice, none of Josh's voice. No, I thought it was good, but I thought this one was very good also, and I'm glad you came back on,
dude. I think what you're doing is so cool. I'm so glad that I'm here for this one. I'm sorry I missed the last one. I'm so glad.
Oh, you're good. I'm glad you're here too.
I think what you're doing is so cool. I love the art style of your merchandise. I love the message. I love that it's not just merch, that it's, there's like a mission behind it, and you're using your resources, and you're making a difference, and you're fighting the fucking law, and you're feeding people that are hungry. I just think that that's all so badass, dude. I got so much respect.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's sick. I found the comment where,
read it in a dramatic voice.
Do we hold commies to the same standard? And I said, if the standard is equal rights forever, I said the standard is equal rights for everyone. If communists ever gain power and start stripping rights from people, we absolutely will.
Yeah.
That's it.
Simple as. They probably won't, like if we suddenly are communists, they probably will not do that.
Yeah.
But,
yeah.
But if
Brandon, if you had a piece of advice for people, what would that be?
Just any little quality of life tip that people are sleeping on.
I think that it is pretty important to have compassion, especially if you don't know enough about a certain subject. I learned a lot about how people are through my time with Food Not Bombs, and I guess there's no wrong time to start to do something, whether it's trying to make a change, trying to focus on your life, trying to do whatever. You could be fucking 12, you could be fucking 40, you could be near your fucking deathbed. As long as you're ready to make that change, I think it's important. And it's not like there doesn't need to be this guilt that holds you back. At the end of the day, I think as long as you're trying to do the best that yet you know is possible, and you stick within your morals and go through with life, that you can achieve anything as long as you try. And that's about it. Sorry, you threw me on it. Try my best on that.
It's supposed to be a deliberately open-ended question to kind of like bring you out of focus mode and just say something off the wall.
No, but I think that I think the most societal change will happen through the actions of collaborations with people you might not agree with. And I think you're going to have to learn how to get comfortable with that if you want to make real change. And if you want to be this community leader or this leftist or whatever, you're going to have to get to a point where you will be comfortable with people that you don't agree with. So that way you guys can reach the common goal. I think that's the most important thing that we're missing these days.
I like it. Yeah, there's very little collaboration outside of our own like specific in groups that we choose. And I would love to see that change as well. Well, dude, thanks for coming on. This was fucking dope. For the folks at home, check out our Patreon if you like what we do. If not, then tell us to go fuck ourselves. That's cool too. Say it in the comments, and before you go, leave us a 5-star review because that'd be great. But
if you want to say something shitty about us, if you leave a 5-star review and then say something shitty, it actually shows up at the top of the page. So.
yeah, exactly. No, Brandon, thank you so much for coming on, man. This is great. Hopefully, if I ever come down to visit Andrew, I can come visit you also, and we could hang out and do some cool stuff together.
Yeah, it's just a 3-hour drive.
That's not bad.
Yeah, it's San Antonio, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's nothing. Come out on a Sunday, and it's 2.5.
Yeah, there you go.
Nice. Nice. Smoking weed. Yeah, anyway.
Beers.
Beers. Who got the beers?
That's right.
You got the beers. All right, well, it's been a pleasure, guys.
Yeah, dude.